Every person has a story, and every experience has a lesson. This is Limitless Minds, where we talk to our Cal alumni, be it scientists, artists, educators, professionals, and much more, and all to uncover the pivotal moment that shaped their lives. I'm Tanish, Shenoy, your host, and together we'll be exploring their triumphs, challenges, and defining experiences. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Limitless Minds, the podcast where we interview and sit down with Cal alumni and unpack the real stories behind the titles. I'm your host, Tanish Shenoy, a freshman at Cal. Go Bears! Teen entrepreneur, someone who's slowly starting to realize that success isn't just about what you build. It's also about what you bounce back from. Today's guest, he is one of the most powerful storytellers we've had on this show, Larry Luong. Class of 1998. He and his family escaped Vietnam on a boat. And later, he became an attorney, faced with some of life's hardest challenges. And he found his way to peace and purpose. He's now a federal affairs manager at SMUD, a dad of 4, and someone who's built life around service, advocacy, and truth. Larry, I'm super excited and honored to have you here on Limitless Minds. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for joining me on this podcast. So let's get right into it, shall we?
Absolutely.
So let's start off with someplace that people typically don't start off with, which is your childhood. What about your childhood that you could share, or something from your childhood that you remember?
Sure. Well, I don't remember all of this, but I was told my parents escaped Vietnam with me as a toddler, and I didn't meet my father until I was 3. Before I met him, my mom and I escaped Vietnam on a boat with other family members, and we lived for a period in a refugee camp. And once we moved here to the United States, it was many years of living in poverty and housing projects and low-income housing until I made it to Berkeley for college.
I see you were supposed to take care of your siblings, and then during high school, you're basically an adult. How do you manage such high-level responsibilities, and how did that help you navigate throughout college and life?
Well, I don't know if manage is quite word, but I volunteered for the latchkey role because I saw my parents working so hard that we were poor. And so because of that, I felt like it was my responsibility to pitch in however way I could. And so at 9, I started taking care of my younger siblings while my parents worked and went to school. And in high school, I was already managing the household chores and things that had to be done around the house to help my parents out as they were working full time. It was a challenge. It wasn't something that I would wish on anyone, but I'm glad that I did it because it really equipped me to be a more confident and independent young person, especially as I was going through college, living in Berkeley, and even after I started working.
So you did everything right on paper with college. You also went to law school. You got married, and then you had the so-called safe life. But then it all started to crack. So when did you first realize that chasing what you were supposed to do didn't mean that I'm okay or I'm all good?
Yeah. So what you see on paper is not always what you get. I would definitely encourage anyone who thinks that getting all the right degrees and going to all the good schools is equal a happy life. I'm a good example that that's not necessarily the case. I learned after I got my divorce that my life was in shambles, and I looked around my house and literally saw my life in pieces. That's when I realized that I needed to do something different. And that wasn't to continue operating from the same playbook that I was given growing up, that I was either supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer, that I was supposed to go to college, the top college I could get into and whatnot, that I needed to define my own path. And learning that after your marriage has collapsed and seeing that your future is a big unknown that you have to define all for yourself was very daunting at first, but it's a process. And I would encourage anyone who's going through tough times, pivoting in their career, going through life changes to realize that that experience will help them become stronger. And I'm a good example of someone who has gone through enough to build a new life and be a better version of myself.
Yeah. Based on that, like, I'm wondering, like, what were some of the first initial moments that you started to see the cracks fall through and realize, okay, this is where I should probably start to change, or this is where I feel like something's not right?
Yeah. So one of the clear signs to me that my life was not well was when I started experiencing mental health issues after my divorce. And I would wake up in cold sweats. I couldn't focus at work. I was having anxiety attacks. So that was when I realized that something needed to change and that I was the one who actually needed to change because I had not faced my own demons for so many years. And that was a process. It took many years of counseling and working through my own failures, what I thought were failures, that ended up, I realized, being my areas of strength. And that's one of the things I came across in going through that work was the work of a Vietnamese monk called Thich Nhat Hanh. And one of his famous quotes is, "No mud, no lotus." And that reminds me that my life, the lotus that it is, the happiness, the children that I have, the fortunes that I'm afforded today is because I went through the rough times. And as Thich Nhat Hanh would remind his followers, in that lotus is the elements of all the suffering and grief that you had to go through to have the flower blossom. And I think that's a good analogy to what I experienced in my life, going through the rough periods to have my lotus bloom.
Wow, that's a good analogy of like no to lotus, no bloom by the monk. Like, how do you feel like for anyone who's 18 and trying to parenting their family, what advice do you have for them and how can they use this no mud, no lotus analogy?
I would say three things. I would say to this person that that example of no mud, no lotus should encourage anyone who's going through a rough time. The future is what they make of it. And at this point, what they can do about helping them create that future is to accept what they are going through as hard. There's nothing easy about going through a divorce. There's nothing easy about losing a job or dealing with the death of a family member. But it's through those hard experiences and doing the soul searching that sometimes has to happen that you gain so much out of it, either discovering a strength or identifying a weakness that you wanted to escape from during your life. I would also say that having some self-compassion is crucial to getting through any rough period in your life. And I certainly learned that myself, that you don't have to flog yourself. Life will do the flogging for you. And lastly, I would say that we attribute what we want to our experiences. The experiences are just facts. And whether it's a divorce or losing a job or whatever calamity that we may experience, we get to decide how to respond. And in deciding how we respond is how we make a better life for ourselves.
So it's all about how we respond to the situation. How do we perceive it? Not about being like, oh, I lost my job, or oh, I got a divorce, that all my life is now shambles. But even despite of it being shambles, we should figure out how do we get back to it. So what is the one truth about you that never changed, no matter how much the story changed over time?
Yes, I would say that my childhood as a refugee and then coming to the United States, growing up poor, experiencing both the terrible lows of poverty and now the fortune of being able to go to a great school like Cal and have a career as an attorney and working as a professional. I would say that experience of experiencing the rough times has forged me into a more resilient person. And resilience, I think, is what I feel I've gained from my experience through life in school and career.
Google nor ChatGPT can do it, just like you have to go through it through life to be able to understand and truly learn those lessons.
Yeah, as I've told my daughter, there is no easy button in life. You do have to experience it, you have to live through it. And it's okay to not succeed because in those experiences, you will gain a true, authentic version of yourself.
Wow. All right. One last scene image. You're sitting down at Sprawl Plaza and you bump into your 19-year-old self, all sleep deprived, overwhelmed, maybe a little lost. So what would you tell him?
I would tell him first, be patient. You can have a lot of the things that you want in life, not necessarily all at the same time. So be patient, and those things that you wish in life will come to you through hard work and perseverance. Second, I would say it's okay to lean into what you perceive as your failures. What I mean by that is growing up poor, I learned that saving was essential for survival. And because I learned that lesson early on, I made myself save a third of every paycheck that I earned through work. Because I am able to save that money, I've been able to afford a home and afford the life that I have today. The things that we may perceive as weaknesses may end up helping us become stronger and more resilient. Lastly, I would say it's okay to listen to your conscience. Oftentimes, we fill our heads with stories that we tell ourselves that we need to be something, we need to do something. And rarely do we ever listen to the voice inside and ask ourselves, why do we want to do something? What is it for? To what end are we doing whatever we're doing? I didn't start asking those questions of myself until after my divorce and after I learned the hard way that I needed to chart my own course in life. 3 things: self-compassion, patience, and resilience.
Oh, wow. You gave us a 1-minute long masterclass. So Larry, you said you went to Cal and you ended up going into law. So I was wondering, how did Cal shape your career and who you are today?
Oh, that's a good question. I spent a lot of time writing and editing for the Daily Cal while I was at Berkeley. And from that experience, I found a joy in writing and learning new things. And so one of the things I take away from my experience at Cal is just a newfound curiosity. As far career-wise, I went from writing and editing at the Daily Cal, being an aspiring journalist, to an aspiring attorney. And that transition allowed me to use a lot of the things that I learned as a student journalist, writing and researching and speaking, to my role as an attorney, where I was advocating on behalf of clients. And that helped me gain a sense of confidence I don't think I would have had without going through that rigor law school.
I see. That's definitely like something that a lot of Cal students go through, and I've seen that shape them in the end.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that anyone who is considering law school, ask yourself, what do you really want to do with this degree beyond just practicing as an attorney? Because I ended up using my law degree in government affairs. And in that role, I'm still advocating, but now it's in a role of a lobbyist and advocating for interests that help protect my organization and the people that it serves.
Okay, so now I'm 19 and I'm still trying to figure out life, but this one I know for sure is gonna stick.
That's definitely a lot, and shows to a lot of people that even your past careers or any of your past career ideas or whatever you do will never go to waste. So like, what's one thing you'd say to all the people who are confused in their careers or being like, oh, they come in as a lawyer, but then they realize, oh, I think I would like to do something else with my life. How do you tell them that, okay, how do I pivot? How do I actually use some skills that I've done from my career into some other career?
I think part of that will just be a natural progression of a person's interest. If you are interested, for instance, in science and you are a botanist, you're going to look at flowers and you're going to look at plants regardless of what role you're in. And so you should do those things, continue doing those things that you naturally would do regardless of whether you get paid for it or not. And then start selecting experiences that puts you in touch with people who are working or doing things that are associated with that interest. I was interested in the electric utility business, so I went to meetings in the state capitol to meet with people who do that type of work. And that's how I ended up at SMUD. So I would encourage anyone who is trying to explore different routes to do that. Maybe keep your day job while you're interviewing people on the side of what they are doing and what they're passionate about.
I see. And just say if someone's like being like, oh, I want to try something out, but I'm not sure if I'd like it or not. How did they approach it? Being like, they get a chance to actually get a taste of it and try it. And then based on that, be able to do something else too.
Yeah. One of the books that I read for my graduate leadership program was a book called Designing Your Life. And that book explains how a person can try out a career without necessarily quitting their job or changing their job right now. It's basically planned out on paper and test it out and experiment with it while you are still gainfully employed. Sometimes it might involve switching careers before you get to do that, but there's different avenues of testing out a career path that you may be interested in if you are seeking to pivot. And once again, developing a village of people around you who support you and are also motivated in things that you're interested in goes a long way to helping you chart that new course that you may want to pursue for yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely something that a lot of people need to hear. And a lot of people need to understand and be like, hey, you don't have to try something out fully to be able to understand it. You can just give it a small taste and really be like, okay, this is something, but sure, sometimes it might not always be the case.
Visualizing goes a long way as well. If you can just give yourself a little time, take a little time out and visualize what your life would be in that new role, then you actually start imagining what the elements of that life would be. And then you can actually test it out without going full bore into a new life.
So Larry, now we're on the final part of the podcast, the rapid fire round. I have 60 seconds to answer the questions. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Did you ever break into a rooftop, a tunnel, or a locked library?
No.
What music or band reminds you of your Berkeley days?
Nirvana.
Most underrated place on campus to just breathe or take a break?
The lawn next to the music building.
A Berkeley tradition you hope that would never die?
Oh, big game weekend.
Nice. What do you miss the most about that version of Cal when you were there?
I think it was, even though it was a really big place, it always felt small to me because I had a small group of friends and colleagues at the Daily Cal. It always just seemed like a intimate place, even though there were tens of thousands of students.
All right. Now, one word to describe your student self at the time.
Way too studious. Studious.
Okay. If not a lobbyist, what would you be doing right now as a career?
Probably a travel and food blogger.
Okay. All right. Any weird Cal rituals or traditions were retired over the years?
You know, I used to love hearing the Carolinists play pop songs out of the company.
I see. All right. What was the real party scene back then? Not like the ASUC Flyers, but the low-key places only the insiders mainly knew about.
Pass.
And last but not least, one word about Stanford.
Boring.
Well then, go Bears. And that wraps up our rapid fire round. Thank you, Larry, for doing this, and thank you for being on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for joining me. I hope to talk to you soon.
Every story is a lesson, and every challenge is an opportunity. Success, it looks different for everyone, but growth, it's universal. Thanks for joining me here on Limitless Minds. Until next time, I want you to stay curious and remember to stay limitless. Because if you don't start now, someone else will.